I know, I get it, you're sick of hearing about smart light panels that come in every possible shape and size, but hear me out. The Govee Hexa panels are different, and here's why. 1, they go around corners. 2, they bleed light out to the sides in a really pleasing way. And 3, every individual panel can do a multicolour gradient. I'm James Bruce, you're watching MUO Reviews, and keep watching to find more about the Govee Hexa light panels and how you can win yourself a set to brighten up your space. In the box, you'll find 10 hex panels, each measuring about 7 inches at the widest point, and each one individually wrapped in plastic. Please stop doing that. The cardboard dividers are more than enough to protect them in transit. Each one features a series of ports on the back, with one labelled with a triangle and 5 others with numbered ports, as well as an adhesive pad already attached. You'll also get 10 flexible connectors. These are pretty long and can bend. One thing to note is that each panel can only have one in and one out connector. More on that later. Finally, there are 2 spare adhesive pads in case you mess that up. There's a placement bracket, a small level, and a power supply with the first connector built in. So it's a good idea to install the Govee Home app if you haven't already. It paired up simply and easily for me, and because I already have my Wi-Fi password saved in the Govee Home app, setup was really trivial. The app will instruct you to turn on the power and then connect the power connector to each panel in turn, just to check they're not faulty, so you should go ahead and do that. Then when you're on to designing your layout and perhaps you're stuck on ideas, you'll find the recommended designs very helpful. There is one significant restriction to your designs, as I alluded to earlier. Each panel can only have one in and one out connector, which means your design needs to be able to trace one line from start to finish, with each panel only connected once, like some sort of puzzle. So you need a chain of panels, one after the other. Of course, you can still have more than one panel placed next to each other in a group, and the structure of the wiring bears no overall relevance on the lighting output, but you do need to be able to trace that single connection line from one end to the final panel without orphaning any panels that are in between. Now, this is in contrast to the Nanoleaf or Yeelight panels, which you can basically just connect to any neighbour, and then they sort of spider out and figure out their design themselves. All of the designs under the recommended tab, however, of course, are legal, but I did find this to be a pretty big limitation when I was trying to come up with designs myself. The other thing to bear in mind is that you can't really change your design up once it's on the wall. I mean, sure, you can literally pull them off with the sticky bits, but you can't, take this hexagon off, I'd prefer that one down there. Now with Nanoleaf you can do that, but with these, once it's on the wall, it's pretty much fixed. That said, while most smart lighting products only work on a flat wall, and that's a problem if you're tight on space, as well as limiting your creativity with your lighting design, the Govee Hexa light panels work on corners. And all of the included connectors can work around a wall. They're all the same and they're all flexible. So with my design picked out and a midpoint chosen where the corner would be, we opted to mount them in a little bit unconventional way around a deep door frame in the older part of the house. No, I don't live in a castle, but this is literally how thick the walls of this house used to be before a corridor was tacked on one side. So the Govee install in the app says to start from the first panel and then work your way up from there. Also be sure to put the connectors in the right way. I mean, it's not complicated. It has arrows that point in the direction of the triangle on the back, but just be careful when you're doing it. Like all Govee products, the Hexa panels are controlled primarily using the Govee app. There is no inline remote control on this kit, either just an on-off switch and an inbuilt microphone. So for any kind of customization that you want to do, you will need to use the app. However, of course, if you have a favorite scene, you can just set it onto that, leave it, and then just use the power on and off. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It'll remember the scene next time you turn it on. The app is pretty easy to use, but it has grown a lot over the years and could really do with a rethink and a paring down in places, I think, purely because of the feature creep that's been introduced. There's a massive library of scenes in the effects lab, for instance, but then you also have separate buttons for music modes, standard colors, scenes, DIY, which you can further customize. You can also create your own custom dynamic scenes reasonably easily. It's difficult to achieve a specific look that you have in mind though. You can randomize things pretty easily and then tweak them and it'll look pretty. But if you think, okay, I want to get this one here doing this and this one doing this in this style, you'd have to do a lot of experimentation to figure out what effect that corresponds to, because they're named rather than animated, and it's difficult to know what exactly they're going to do. Still, there's a massive range of scenes to choose from that are built in. You won't really be disappointed, and I suspect you probably won't even need to use the custom stuff. Nearly all of the features can be used over Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. It says it's only compatible with 2.4 GHz, though I had no trouble on my dual band network right next to the router, so I don't think that's an issue. In the past, you had a lot more control of Govee lights only when you were within Bluetooth range, but this latest batch of smart lighting seems to have pretty much feature parity over Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. But it does prefer Bluetooth if you're within range for some reason. Although it's compatible out of the box with Google and Alexa, it won't work with Apple HomeKit. However, you can get it to work with Siri if you make use of Siri shortcuts and IFTT web service. You just need to connect the Govee Home app to your IFTT account, create a new applet using webhooks, which is a unique URL you can ping to initiate an action, assign that to turn on or off your Govee light, then create a Siri shortcut to ping that URL. Full instructions you'll find on the IFTT help page for setting that up, but as you can see, it works. Hey Siri, turn on downstairs corridor.
Done.
Of course, this is going to get a little bit more complex if you want more dynamic actions or scene controls, etc. But for most of us, it should be sufficient for common automations. All right, so how does it look? That's the important thing when we're talking about lighting. One thing I really like about the Hexa panels is that the light subtly spills out from the edges and there's more volume to them, rather than being sort of almost flush with the wall and literally just lighting up that front face only. This light bleed effect, as far as I can tell, is unique to the Govee Hexa light panels. Neither Yeelight nor Nanoleaf Shapes offers this style of lighting, so this might be something you prefer the look of, or you might not, but it is distinctive. I also combined ours with some hexagonal shaped mirrored acrylic for this unique reflective effect that also helps to spread the light out more, giving a really sort of modern look and just helping to brighten up our otherwise gloomy downstairs corridor. These, by the way, were pretty cheap. It was about $10 for a pack of 12 from AliExpress, and the size matches perfectly. So I'm really pleased with how that turned out. Another really unique feature about the Govee Hexa light panels is that each panel contains multiple pixel LEDs, so you can get a gradient across each panel and not just across the design as a whole. Most of these custom lighting systems, like Nanoleaf and Yeelight, allows you to vary the colors across a design as a whole, but each panel is limited to a single color block. So this makes the Govee Hexa panels a lot more dynamic, with more vibrant and eye-catching designs, a lot more possibilities that aren't as strictly tied to the number of panels and shape that you made. You can have gradients within a single panel and not just panel by panel. So what are some other differences between, say, Nanoleaf and Govee Hex panels that you should know about? Unlike the Nanoleaf, you can't extend the Govee Hexa panels. What you see is pretty much what you get, 10 panels. You also can't mix and match shapes as you can with the new line of Nanoleaf Shapes, as they're called. In terms of price per panel, Govee is about a third cheaper, but as a set, there's not much in it. So the Govee Hex panels are £190 currently in the UK, $170 in the US again for 10 panels, versus £200, $200 for 7 Nanoleaf hexagon panels in a starter kit. If you wanted exact parity with 10 panels, it's an additional £70 or £70, $70. So the Govee lights are about 2/3 the price of Nanoleaf, but on the other hand, they can't be expanded. I also found there's either more RGB IC LEDs within the Hexa panels, or they're just generally brighter compared to any Nanoleaf panels that I own. I really had to whack the brightness down to 20% to film most of this review, otherwise you just couldn't see what the colors were. It was just too exposed. So the Govee Hexa panels are easily enough to either just be, you know, a nice delicate mood light in the corner, or to really light up an entire room or corridor. At full brightness, it can actually be quite blinding if it's, you know, from completely in the dark. And of course that means they're really easily visible during daytime too. One of the biggest differences I mentioned is the lack of inline remote to cycle through saved scenes and music modes, etc. If you're buying this primarily for a party room, is that a thing? Or, for instance, you have kids who may not have a smartphone yet. Obviously, you don't want them bugging you every time they want to change the scene, which will be every 5 seconds. You'll want buttons to do that. Then this wouldn't be suitable. I'll also add that a physical remote control is, in my experience, essential on the Nanoleaf panels because the Wi-Fi is so utterly horrendous, at least on the triangles and canvas products I have. I've completely given up on using the Nanoleaf app to control anything because it invariably ends up with having to reset them to get them back onto the Wi-Fi, and it's a well-publicized issue. Govee, on the other hand, has never failed me yet. Whatever Wi-Fi chip it's using is at least reliable. So for those of us into various home automations, that one factor is huge. So now we get on to the big question: should you buy the Govee Hexa light panels for accent lighting or streamer backgrounds, as a centerpiece for your living room parties? The Govee Hexa light panels do have a distinctive look that I don't think you'll find anywhere else. They're big, they're bold, and they're gorgeous, thanks to those gradient possibilities within each panel. They're the brightest smart panel lighting I've tested yet, by far. On the downside, you are somewhat limited by the wiring design of having to follow a single line and ultimately 10 panels. You can't create some epic wall-sized piece. Even if you did have $5,000 you wanted to drop on smart lighting, that option isn't there with the Govee Hexa panels. Of course, you can buy 2 kits and have 2 independently controlled fixtures, perhaps if you wanted left and right, but you can't coordinate them in any way, so you'd be individually controlling them. But for most people, they're better value, they're brighter, and they're a nicer design. Get these. All right, competition time. To celebrate the launch of the Govee Hexa light panels in the UK anyway, we've teamed up with Govee to give away a set of one of these lovely lights to one lucky winner from either the US or the EU. Just head on over to makeuseof.com/giveaways and follow the instructions there to enter this and any other giveaways that we have running at the moment. I believe we've got a sweet 4K monitor from InnerCN still running. Might as well, eh? Enter the code HEXALLTHETHINGS for some bonus entries in this competition. Good luck, the competition closes in the month and the winner will be contacted via email from competitions@makeuseof.com, so make sure you've added that to your address book or we might end up in spam. Until next time, please hit like, do consider subscribing if you're not already for more gadget reviews, giveaways and more from all of us over at MUO Reviews, makeuseof.com. Until next time.